Murray Barracks under lockdown. 2 persons arrested for breaching quarantine protocols. And public outcry following gruesome murder.
This is National EMTV News with Helen Sayre.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Thursday's news. PNG Defence Force personnel, including their families at Murray Barracks, are in a 14-day lockdown following the reported 10th positive COVID-19 case. While SOE controller David Manning said the 27-year-old female soldier does not reside at the barracks, PNGDF Commander Gilbert Toropo said Murray Barracks will be on lockdown for 2 weeks.
Just when the Papua New Guinean government is relaxing the SOE orders, 2 new positive COVID-19 cases have been reported in Port Moresby, bringing the total positive cases to 10. The 9th case reported over the weekend is a 44-year-old Australian Defence Force personnel who, according to the SOE controller, contacted the COVID-19 hotline number and reported having experienced flu-like symptoms. His samples were collected and his test results came back positive. He has since been evacuated by the Australian government. 2 days later, on Wednesday, another female PNGDF soldier tested positive for COVID-19. The SOE controller did not specify if there is a connection between the 2 cases. However, it is understood the ADF personnel who was at the border returned to Port Moresby when he came into contact with the 10th case, and that may include others as well. Starting on Monday, orders were issued by the PNGDF commander, Gilbert Toropo, for a 14-day lockdown. Teddy Row Primary, which is located inside the premises of Murray Barracks, has also been directed to close for the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, other measures on access to essential services or students living at the barracks and going to school are yet to be specified by the SOE controller. Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Persons travelling in from abroad and placed in designated hotels for self-isolation are not allowed any visitors, nor allowed to move about until after the required 14 days quarantine. NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Perodrano said this following the arrest of 2 bank workers for breaching quarantine protocols after being designated to their hotel for self-isolation.
Quarantine at the Holiday Inn, and then decided to call his friend, a female, to go and join him even though he's under quarantine. So they arrested. You're breaching the protocol. You're supposed to be isolated for the next 14 days. It's unfortunately so she got herself drunk and then forced herself into the room or was invited or whatever, and now we're spreading from 1 to 2 quarantine people, and then next more, and then soon enough we're going to have all NCD to be a positive coronavirus case because of lacks of behavior. People are not following the new normal. Suspect Japet Warus, 27 years of Buang and Gav. 2, Samantha Karan, Hanobara Balwan Manusalen. So they are both locals, both working in BSP.
A second isolation facility in East New Britain province is expected to be opened this Friday. The 36-room accommodation facility at the Callabon Sports Oval, formerly used to accommodate the PNG Hunters rugby team, was converted to an isolation facility. The facility is one of the 2 sites in the province that were built in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. East New Britain province alone had reported 2 positive COVID-19 cases. Although there isn't any evidence of a community transmission so far, the provincial SOE controller Wilson Matava says the facility is a safety protocol that will be utilized should there be any new cases in the province. High government officials from Port Moresby are expected to officiate during the opening on Friday. Social media is showing yet again even more public outcry on what is not a first case of violence and definitely will not be the last of domestic violence. The uproar calls for justice from social media users nationwide picked up yesterday for the young female Jenelyn Kennedy, who has now become a statistic of domestic violence in the country. And Cora reports.
Social media users, especially on Facebook, took on a rampage on the brutal news of the passing of the young Jenelyn, expressing hate, curiosity and disappointment. The state of her body, described by a senior doctor who was present for analysis at the layout, only added fuel to the fire, many condemning the act of violence and questioning the circumstances surrounding her death. Much to the disappointment of collecting credible information, not much could be gained from relevant law enforcement authorities until after 4 p.m. yesterday. A statement released on social media of the police reports indicated details of the deceased, the time and location where the incident took place, the vehicle she was brought in on, with a doctor's confirmation of the bruises she sustained to her lifeless body. The main perpetrator, who was supposedly on the run later, was confirmed to have been apprehended and in police custody awaiting charges to be laid after formal police interviews. Many advocates, NGOs and individuals who have come out on social media are calling for immediate action for law enforcement authorities to have justice brought forward to the family of the late Jenelyn Kennedy. Cora, National EMTV News.
Non-government organizations have joined in the public outcry against the death of young Jenelyn at the hands of her partner. Equal Playing Field, an NGO, believes in gender equality and that violence against women is preventable. It said it's high time to take action to protect families and especially the future generation.
Equal Playing Field is concerned about the frequency of gender-based violence within the country and says it needs to be addressed at all levels.
Any normal person will see the situation and obviously feel so much dread, and it's very tragic and unacceptable.
While EPF's work is centered around changing perceptions of young people by educating them on how to have healthy, safe and respectful relationships, Ms. Joseph says gender-based violence is equally concerning to the organization.
Fulfilling to be able to sit amongst young people, to be able to tell them what respectful relationships are, to be able to tell them how to set their boundaries, to be able to help them understand what consent means. It's been an amazing journey to be able to work with teachers to help them understand how critical their role is in child protection.
Joseph says the organization is alarmed at the number of violence cases being shared on both social and traditional media and expressed concern that many young people have been exposed to this. And she says it is time the whole nation comes together and take action to protect families, especially the future ones. EPF's Australian chairman and co-founder Adam Averill joined in the outcry, calling for a response that's Papua New Guinean. Ruth Rungula, National EMTV News.
It's been established that the deceased had made visits to the Family Sexual Violence Unit months prior to her untimely death, but no formal arrests were made. NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Perodrano confirmed this, however bounded by what is termed ethical investigative procedures. The Metsup did not reveal much due to the sensitivity of ongoing investigations.
Call it incompetence, but the Metsup states that there was no real commitment by the victim towards following police procedures.
We know that she came here, but the way it went is that she has not really allowed police to do what they're supposed to do. So it's like, okay, she comes in today and then instead of coming tomorrow, she has not come in. So her case was delayed like that. She has her own way to go about it.
And Homicide has already started interviewing eyewitnesses and family members, additionally stating that a formal complaint has been laid by the family of the deceased and says no arrest or charges will be laid yet until after police have formally interviewed the perpetrator and the witnesses.
Yes, we brought in a suspect here, but he's not arrested yet until we complete all the necessary checks and balance as well as information to be used in court.
The other two suspects have also been brought in as witnesses in line to be questioned, and reassurance has been given by the family for their full cooperation in the late Jenelyn's case.
From us, we are working very well with the family and witnesses to get the best evidence to prepare appropriate charge for that suspect.
Anet Kora, National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. We'll be back with more stories after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Eastern Highlands Provincial Government is committed to contracting with businesses that comply with their tax obligations. Governor Peter Numu made this commitment in Goroka today at a meeting held with the Internal Revenue Commission, or IRC, Commissioner General Sam Coim and his team. Eastern Highlands is the biggest of the Highlands provinces in terms of population and landmass. According to IRC records, the province also has the largest number of registered taxpayers, but only a few businesses are actively paying and filing on time. Mr. Coim says with the provincial government empowering its people through agriculture projects, it will increase the people's ability to buy goods and services from registered taxpayers. This will raise the taxes such as GST. Goroka has a tax centre that services all of Eastern Highlands, including Kainantu. Given the number of taxpayers in Kainantu town and the distance from Goroka, there is also some thinking to establish a branch there. World Vision is working with donors and the national government to improve health and sanitation at the rural level through its WASH project. World Vision is currently implementing WASH interventions in 50 selected schools in Nawai district with donor support from UNICEF and the European Union. Representatives from the various agencies visited one of the project schools during their site visit yesterday.
Tinibe Primary School is one of 50 schools in our district selected by World Vision to implement the WASH project. After some months, this remote school now has proper toilets for teachers and students with running taps. The girls' toilet is inbuilt with an incinerator for sanitary pads. The keys to these new facilities were handed over to the school during the project site visit yesterday. World Vision's Program Operation Director Clement Chipoloko said the project is progressing well in our district.
Also in the other LRGs within our, we have seen something that I've not seen in many places, where the community is very keen to get involved in their own development. It's very keen to map their own development.
The WASH project is jointly funded by UNICEF, the European Union, and the national government through the Nawai District Development Authority. Nawai District is one of 4 pilot districts in the country selected to roll out the project under the Clean Pella Community Project. World Vision is facilitating the project in schools, health centers, and communities in the district. Tinibe Deputy Head Teacher Luke Carey said the project has changed students' attitude towards learning.
The students are beginning to wash their hands after using of toilets, and also the students have realized that it has made a lot of improvement to their health and hygiene. Nawai DDA CEO James Niapukali urged the school to take ownership of the project and maintain healthy habits.
We are targeting school because you plus student is now. You have mama papa no place. You learning lawyer, you want to place na learning mama papa na community facilities.
One of the goals of the WASH project is to improve WASH services in 50 schools, 9 health facilities, and 200 communities in Nawai district. Charlene Airy, National EMTV News, Leh.
Over 30 students in 2 primary schools participated in the Healthy Teen School program. The PNG Cancer Foundation conducted the program at Baruni Primary School last week and St. Michael's Primary School today. Southern Cross Assurance Limited brand ambassador Stephen Curry also made a special appearance to his old school. He spoke to students in grades 6 and 8, sharing his experience from school life to becoming a national athlete and promoting the importance of healthy lifestyle choices. Health educators conducted 5 30-minute sessions simultaneously and distributed information pamphlets among the students to take home. At Baruni Primary, a follow-up survey was conducted to assess the students' exposure to risk factors over the past 12 months. Results showed that the exposure to smoking was 72%, with friends the highest factor of influence among students. And now looking at the NASFund market report, the Kina closed unchanged at $0.289 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina is buying $0.2815, $0.4020 Australian dollars, $0.2410 euro and 29.32 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading lower, coffee and cocoa closed higher, and copra closed unchanged. Crude oil is trading higher, palm oil closed unchanged, and copper closed higher. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed higher, the ASX 200 is trading higher, and the All Ordinaries is trading higher. You're watching National EMTV News. We'll bring you stories making headlines overseas after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, the pioneering new coronavirus vaccine is now the second to enter human trial in Britain. It's part of the fastest ever scientific response to a global health threat. What used to take years is now being done in months. There are now more than 120 vaccines being developed. 13 have begun human trials, 5 in China, 3 in the United States, 2 in the United Kingdom, and 1 each in Australia, Germany and Russia. The only way to know for sure if they work is to trial them in virus hotspots with high or growing infection rates.
Coronavirus has transformed all our lives, and although restrictions are easing, there's only one certain way out of the pandemic, one way to protect us all from the virus, to return society to normal, and that's a vaccine. After Oxford University, now Imperial College London is the latest to begin trials. Kathy, who's 39, is one of 300 volunteers who'll receive the Imperial vaccine. Why did you volunteer?
I think it came from not really knowing what I could do to help, and this turned out to be something that I could do, and understanding that it's not likely that things will get back to normal until there is a vaccine, so wanting to be part of that progress as well.
This is a really unusual vaccine. The synthetic genetic code it contains should instruct muscle cells to produce the spike protein found on the surface of coronavirus. That should prompt the creation of antibodies, and that army of antibodies should remain on guard in case of future exposure to coronavirus, and if it works, prevent infection. Because it's all created artificially, with no need to grow any virus, the vaccine can be manufactured on a huge and concentrated scale.
It means that we can make the equivalent of 2 million doses in the volume of a litre. So you imagine a litre bottle of lemonade, that would have 2 million doses in it. So when you want to start making vaccine for the world, if this is successful, and that's still a big if, it makes it so much more tractable because you don't have to build a factory the size of several warehouses.
Imperial College say they could have enough doses ready to immunise 40 million people in the UK by next summer. But trials must first show the vaccine is safe and effective.
An update now on the surging number of coronavirus in the United States. More than 34,000 new infections were reported on Tuesday. That's the third highest number in one day since the pandemic began, with 3 most populous states, California, Texas and Florida, all setting new one-day records. So how did other countries manage to get this virus under control while the United States still hasn't got a clue?
The coronavirus crisis in America has reached such disturbing levels that the European Union could soon block Americans from traveling to Europe, according to officials. One diplomat telling CNN Europe will be looking to keep out visitors from countries where the virus is circulating most actively. And by that measure, experts say, the U.S. doesn't stack up well.
The United States has not responded in a coherent, organized fashion which is capable of doing anything serious to really stand in the way of this virus.
The United States is returning to the high infection rates of the outbreak's early days, while the European Union has pushed its rate down and seems to be keeping it down. In Europe, even in places like Italy, which was devastated by the virus early on, longer lockdowns, aggressive testing, and contact tracing have proven effective, while states like Florida, Texas, Arizona, and California are seeing enormous new spikes.
The U.S. response is just lagging. We're not doing what we need to do to keep physically distant. We're not across the country scaling up contact tracing as effectively as needed so we can prevent cases from exploding into clusters and outbreaks.
South Korea, like the U.S., has big cities with dense populations vulnerable to coronavirus, but has had dramatically fewer cases and deaths than the U.S. What tactics made the South Koreans more successful?
In South Korea, they have an extraordinarily very smart testing program which enables them to rapidly identify cases, rapidly inform the contacts of those cases, and then rapidly isolate them.
If you had moved to South Korea on January 20th, when each of our countries had its first case, you would have been 70 times less likely to be killed by this virus.
Experts say another big reason the U.S. has fallen behind other countries in the handling of the pandemic is because the federal government allowed individual states to take the lead and make their own decisions of when and how to reopen. As a result, many states reopened much too quickly, while states hit hard early on, like New York, didn't.
They held it. Over a period of weeks to months, they wrestled the pandemic to the ground to the point where now they're more worried about there being new introductions from states where it's taking off.
Open your business now!
Experts say one other problem the U.S. has had, which most other nations have not, the politicization of the response. Leaders like President Trump, Vice President Pence, openly shunning guidelines on wearing masks. Trump on Fox Radio even making fun of Joe Biden, who's warned them.
He started speaking through the mask again. He feels comfortable with the mask on, I think. And even though there was nobody anywhere near him.
Still in the United States, authorities urged residents to wear masks when out in public places. 26 states have seen a rise in COVID-19 cases just over the past week.
California, the first state to issue a stay-at-home order, shattering a daily high set only 2 days ago, adding more than 7,000 new cases on Tuesday.
It is our behaviors that are leading to these numbers, and we are putting people's lives at risk.
COVID-related hospitalizations and ICU admissions also at an all-time high. The numbers in Arizona, Florida, and Texas also surging.
It's not just the increase in the number of cases, it's the slope, the way it's accelerating. It's almost vertical.
One South Florida health system seeing a more than 100% increase in the number of COVID-19 patients in the last 2 weeks.
We're not where we need to be.
If you don't like wearing a mask, you're not going to like wearing a ventilator.
As of Tuesday, just 12% of Arizona's ICU beds were available.
We're going to go into surge capacity mode probably by 4th of July. So the most urgent thing, I think, is to get the hospital systems ready.
Nationwide, more than half of U.S. states reporting an increase in new cases over the past week. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, where cases are trending down, want to keep it that way.
People coming in from states that have a high infection rate must quarantine for 14 days.
As of Wednesday night, 8 states subject to the new order, which comes with hefty fines in New York State, starting at $2,000.
So it's time for personal responsibility.
The New York City Marathon, which attracts more than 50,000 runners and nearly 1 million spectators every fall, canceled over coronavirus fears. Major League Baseball, however, will take the field this summer, 60 games starting in late July. Coinciding with that news, more positive cases among the Phillies and reports of infection for the Rockies, too.
Despite Russia surging past 600,000 COVID-19 cases, President Vladimir Putin refuses to cancel Victory Day celebrations in Moscow. Packed crowds watched an impressive military parade in Red Square ahead of a bid by the Russian president to extend his time in power.
If there was plenty of pomp, well, think of the circumstance. Russia is marking 75 years since the defeat of Nazi Germany. Military might in abundance. No social distancing, though. The Kremlin claims coronavirus is in retreat, but it's not beaten. The city of Moscow is recording hundreds of new COVID cases every day. So why did Vladimir Putin decide his military show must go on?
This parade isn't just about the past, it's very much about the present. Vladimir Putin wants to be seen as the father of the nation, the protector of Russia. And crucially, he hopes that all of this will boost his popularity ahead of a referendum on extending his rule.
Away from the square, Muscovites ignored calls by the city's mayor to stay safe by staying home and watching the parade on TV. Fearing a spike in infections, politician Leonid Gozman has called on investigators to open a criminal case against President Putin over the parade.
I think it's dangerous, and I think that he and his people understand that it's dangerous, so I think it's a crime. It's a crime. It's murdering.
But this war veteran doesn't agree.
Virus or no virus, nothing would stop me from being here to celebrate our victory. And just like we defeated the Nazis, Russia will defeat the coronavirus.
Just the kind of optimism and patriotism Vladimir Putin would approve of as he looks to extend his rule over Russia.
And Trukai Sports is next. Fidelis Sukina joins us at the Sports Desk.
Thank you, Helen. Trukai Sports is next. We have news from the Oil Search National Football Stadium. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The new venue management team at the Oil Search National Football Stadium are focused on getting the venue prepared for the 2021 Intrust Super Cup season and have started the rehabilitation process of the venue. They are also working on new strategies to help improve the managing of a world-class facility. There is a new venue management at the Oil Search National Football Stadium, headed by Sean Vincent. Sean says that the facility, especially the playing field, is of high standards, similar to top-tier competition stadiums in Australia, what he described as an all-weather pitch.
The Oil Search National Football Stadium is a really unique field. It's the only kind in Papua New Guinea and even quite rare in Australia. It's what the experts call a perched table system. So if you picture a field sitting on top of a quite an intricate sub-drainage system. So it's designed, as our lead groundsman said, it's designed to be an all-weather pitch.
As new managers of the venue, he says the facility needs attention, but also to other aspects of venue management as well.
You know, the stadium's pushing 5 years old, so like any asset, the integrity of the facility now needs a certain amount of attention, and I think you know, as a facility management company, we look at the events as only a part of what we're trying to achieve here.
In light of the COVID-19 global pandemic, the Board of Trustees and Oil Search have committed their investment into extensive field rehabilitation programs in readiness for the 2021 Intrust Super Cup season. Ovals 1 and 2 are already well into their respective rehabilitation schedules.
The COVID-19 lockdown has given us a rare opportunity to be able to put both fields, Field 1 and 2, through an extensive rehabilitation program. since 2016, as Asi said, the field has worked pretty hard, pretty much from January right through to December. So the Board of Trustees, the Lloyd Robson Oval Trustees, and our major naming rights sponsor, Oil Search, have aligned in there and also committed the capital and funding to be able to put the fields through this extended rehabilitation program.
The Rugby League Intercity Cup competition, Digicel Cup, is the only rugby league competition outside of the NRL to start its season. And yesterday the launching took place in Port Moresby at the Sanctuary Hotel. The Intercity Cup competition was launched yesterday, low-key at the Sanctuary Hotel in Port Moresby. The 12 captains turned up for the launching, with some old faces making a return to the Rugby League semi-professional competition. One of those players is Watson Boas, who is now the captain of his team, the Egmark Rabaul Gurias. The Kumul's halfback is excited at the prospect of leading his home team.
Since 2015, last year, grand final in Blawinim lo 2015, that was the last game I played until 2016 with Johnny Antes. From that time on, I play till this year, where me running next week. When the team can. Captain of Lace Next Tigers, Tiger Emere, says the competition is looking tough this year, with the bulk of the SPPNG Hunters making it back to the Digicel Cup.
All boys long penjantas go back and one respective club or representative club me looking the same competition number really tough, but don't play it's like we're really preparing for this competition.
For the Central Dabari's new captain, Rex Kauper, says the team has cut down their squad to 30 after having an initial team of 60. The team is made up of players from the Central Province and a few from the Highlands region as well.
60, yeah, big numbers. Just walk on this la till Dulesa 6 also. Nakati got on 30 men, so after all finalize him, yeah. 30-man squad. Main boys, some Central Province or raw talent boys, stuff. They are just low 1-1 boys. Come outside, 1-1 Islands boys. Join him this year like Philemon Kimisabe and Jerry Teme. So I hope this will help him 2020 season.
Matches are set to kick off on the 5th of July, which is next week Sunday, with the matches to be held at only 2 venues, the Sir John Guy Stadium in Port Moresby and a venue in Lae. The first match is between the Rabaul Gurias and Hagen Eagles in Port Moresby at 1 p.m. 5th of July. The US PGA Tour starts this weekend. I'll have the details after the break. Don't go away.
True Kai Sports.
Welcome back. The virus isn't going anyway, and we need to live with it. That's the bold declaration from the boss of the United States PGA Tour as they forge ahead with this weekend's event, despite more positive tests and more player withdrawals.
Less than 3 weeks into the PGA Tour return, doubt is starting to rumble over the safety of it continuing. Its commissioner, though, signalling whatever happens, they'll keep playing.
The reality is that we all have to live in an environment of COVID-19. And so I'm concerned, but I'm also confident with the program, the protocols that we've put in place, and our ability to be able to sustain the PGA Tour.
But Jay Monahan faces a problem. Players Nick Watney and Cameron Champ have tested positive, as well as the caddies of Brooks Koepka and Graham McDowell. None of them will now line up this week, while Webb Simpson and Chase Koepka have also withdrawn.
I find it difficult to believe, as contagious as this thing seems to be, that I don't have it.
7 people related to the tour have tested positive in total from nearly 3,000 tests. While it's not widespread, there's concern with COVID cases in the States nearing 2.5 million.
I think myself even had this false sense of security. Okay, this isn't really going to happen. We're not going to get it. And it's obviously coming back stronger than it ever has, and we've got to be very serious.
The tour has taken another step to try and do whatever it can to stamp out the virus from its events, giving every player and caddy a Whoop wrist strap, which gives the wearer up-to-date respiratory and other health data. Watney's adamant it signalled he had COVID before his positive test.
His respiratory rate spiked one night, and he never would have been able to know to go get tested until potentially later in the week after he'd already played.
It does mean some positive news for Kiwi Tim Wilkinson, who's been given a spot in the field this week in place of Brooks Koepka.
And that story ends Trukai Sports. Helen will be back with the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoniPlus, with you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow. Mostly fine in Port Moresby, Kerema and Popondetta. Chance of light drizzles tonight in Daru and chances of evening rain drizzles in Alotau. In the Momasu region, mostly fine weather in Lae, Midang and Wewak, and cloudy with a chance of rain drizzles in Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, cloudy with a chance of a few showers in Lorengau and Kavieng. Mostly fine weather in Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe, and partly cloudy with a chance of few showers in Buka. And in the Highlands region, showers then morning fog in Mount Hagen. Chances of few rain showers in Goroka, Kondiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, followed by morning fog. There is a renewal strong wind warning for all coastal waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru, through the Gulf of Papua to Hood Point to Samari Island, including eastern Melbe Islands and Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to Sia Sea and Long Island, to Karkar Island to Bogia to Wewak, also including the Coral Sea, southwest Bismarck Sea and south of Solomon Sea. Strong southeast wind surge of 25 to 33 knots are expected to continue within the next 24 hours, causing rough seas and high wind waves. All small crafts and boats are advised to take necessary precautions before going out to sea. Forecast for small crafts within the coastal waters of Papua New Guinea for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru to Kiwai Islands to Gulf of Papua to Hood Point to Samari Island, seas of 2.5 to 3 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Islands, seas of 2 to 2.5 meters. Waters of East Cape to Cape Vogel to Finschhafen, and with waters of Wewak to Aitape to northern PNG Indonesian border, including waters of Manus and its western group of islands, with waters of New Ireland and Bougainville, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to Siasi Island to Long Island to Karkar Island to Manam Island and to Wewak, seas of 1.5 to 2 meters. Waters of East and West New Britain, seas of 0.5 to 1.3 meters. A look at the ocean forecast. The PNG areas in the Coral Sea, seas rough with southeast winds at 25 to 33 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas moderate to fresh with southeasterly winds at 15 to 25 knots, increasing to 33 knots in the south. In the Bismarck Sea, seas moderate to fresh with southeasterly winds at 15 to 25 knots, increasing to 33 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas slight to moderate with southeasterly winds at 10 to 20 knots.
Weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And before we go, Papua New Guineans have been warned to refrain from squatting on any state land in the country. Recently appointed Lands Department Secretary Benjamin Sampson echoed this in a media conference today at Edatano House. Secretary Sampson also expressed his vision for the department going forward on how land can be harnessed to improve the quality of life for citizens in PNG.
Since appointment to the Secretary's role at Edatano House less than a year ago, Secretary Sampson highlighted during the press conference this afternoon some tasks accomplished thus far. Among these are securing all land records, reviewing the Land Act, and putting in place an automated land information system. However, there is still a lot to be done. As part of the tasks that lay ahead for the future, squatting on state land will not be allowed.
To all our citizens, please, and I must repeat, please, don't squat on state land. The state land is as a owner, and the owner is the state, and Lands Department is the custodian of that state land on behalf of the state. If someone wants to, in a traditional setting, in a village setting, if someone wants to go and occupy or sit on someone's land, he must ask the owner of the land.
The Secretary said a public notice was published in February this year, warning people to voluntarily vacate state land they were squatting on. He also said provincial administrators have powers under the Land Act to conduct evictions, and so they are encouraged to do so in their respective provinces. Moreover, the Secretary urged that no parties must transact over any undeveloped land as it is illegal.
The other warning I should give is there's already, all of us see in papers, in some social media, where people advertising undeveloped land, commonly known as vacant land for sale. Please, by law, you are not allowed to sell a vacant or undeveloped land, or even lease it.
Secretary Sampson highlighted some major ongoing land issues in NCD to be dealt with, including Kone Tigers Club land, Jack Piddick Park, 2 Mile Hill Oval, and 16 Mile land. Dennis Orere, National MTV News.
And that's been the news, sport and weather for today, Thursday, the 25th of June, 2020. From all of us here at MTV, pleasant viewing. Bye for now.